President Joe Biden's historic decision to drop his re-election bid. Biden becomes the first president since Lyndon Johnson in May of 1968, when he stunned the nation by saying he would not run for re-election. Today's announcement did not come close to being that big of a huge surprise.
The decision comes after nearly a month of growing calls for him to step aside following that disappointing debate performance. And Biden made the announcement in a letter posted on social media saying, in part, quote, it was in the best interest, of my party and the country for me to stand down.
And moments after releasing that statement, Mr. Biden announced that he is endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris to replace him, saying in the Post that he is offering his full support of the current vice president, something local Democratic politicians are, of course, endorsing.
I fully support Kamala Harris. And in fact, she's been trained by the best. Joe Biden was a vice president himself, and so she probably had the best mentor to work under.
By the way, the president said he will address the nation later this week. Right now, he's at his home in Delaware after he tested positive for COVID last Wednesday.
Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also endorsing Vice President Harris for president. In a joint statement, the Clintons praised Biden for his political accomplishments and for, quote, standing up for America time and again. But they go on to say they are honored to endorse Harris and that they will, quote, fight with everything we've got to elect her. America's future depends on it. Former President Barack Obama has also weighed in, saying in part, we've also been reminded again that President Biden is a patriot of the highest order. However, the former president has not yet publicly endorsed a new nominee. And former Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying in part, President Biden is a patriotic American who has always put our country first. His legacy of vision, values, and leadership make him one of the most consequential presidents in American history. And there's, of course, been a lot more reaction coming in.
Our own Lauren Toms has spent the day checking in with Bay Area politicos to see how the news is landing with them. I'm supposing that you're finding the same thing. All the Democrats are saying yay for Kamala.
Yeah, that is true. And it's shock, but not quite necessarily a surprise. That is something I've heard a lot of today. But exhaustion is what many in the Democratic Party have been feeling over the last couple of weeks. And one Democratic delegate I spoke with today says this shakeup might just bring the confidence this party has been looking for.
I'm one of 3,900 people who will decide the fate of the free world. So no pressure. No, kidding. I'm kidding. I'm one of 3,900 people who will vote on who will be the Democratic nominee for president.
When Tony Russomanno woke up Sunday morning, he had no plans on traveling to Chicago as a Democratic delegate, with an easy assumption that President Biden would be the Democratic nominee and he could cast his vote from his home in Santa Cruz.
It's nice to go. It's fun. It's exciting a couple of times. But frankly, the appeal of a balloon drop has kind of lost all the excitement for me.
Tony served as a proud California delegate for several election cycles after spending years as a political reporter. He says he, like many Democrats, has felt the exhaustion and concern over the last several weeks watching Biden's campaign unravel.
I don't blame Biden for any of this, and I don't think anyone blames Biden. The shakeup right now instantly has taken old age out of the equation. It's no longer about an old and feebled candidate who can't complete a sentence, who mixes up countries and words, who should never have been on that stage in the debate. And that's all off the table now.
What is on the table is a likely matchup between Kamala Harris and former President Trump. Some, like Democratic donor Mark Buell, say she's the best shot for Democrats to hold on to the White House in November.
Can't say that anyone else is in any better shape, and I think the delegates then will see how far they go. But I think she's very competitive.
Buell has a personal relationship with Harris. He was part of her Senate campaign and supports her as the Democratic pick, bringing a welcomed shakeup to this high-stakes race.
We're in for a very interesting ride, but as I say, it's very exciting.
The change has also brought some excitement to Republicans who don't see Harris as a significant threat to Trump, at least any more than Biden. But that isn't without surprise, says John Dennis, chairman of the San Francisco Republican Party.
The president of the United States is not seeking re-election when he's eligible to do so, and that's a bit shocking. I think the Trump campaign is fairly confident right now.
For Tony, he's spending his night rebooking travel to support Harris on the floor of the DNC in Chicago next month, knowing he plays an important role in the success of his beloved party.
It would be interesting, a lot of fun, and deadly, deadly serious for what we have to do as a Democrat.
Now, the Democratic National Convention is just 4 weeks away, and there are two paths to selecting a new nominee. The first would be a virtual vote that could solidify a candidate early next month. The other is an open convention where delegates would debate on the convention floor, listening to arguments from any other potential candidates. That hasn't happened since 1968, but the parallels between these two races and this year are only just growing.
Thank you, Lauren. San Francisco Mayor London Breed praised President Biden's decision to step down, as well as his record. She also offered an enthusiastic endorsement for Vice President Kamala Harris.
He stepped up. He pretty much came out of retirement because he knew what was at stake, and he helped to lead this country during a very challenging time. We cannot mess around with this opportunity. There is so much at stake, and all I could think is, I wish I could travel to battleground states and just go across the country and help elect Kamala Harris.
Da Lin has been speaking with those who know President Biden and Vice President Harris for decades. Da, how are they responding to all of this?
Yeah, Andrea, from those folks who I've talked to who support Biden, known Biden for years, they say it's not a total surprise. Now, they would like to see Harris replace Biden, become the next Democratic nominee. They say that would pit a former prosecutor up against a convicted felon.
And he did just that.
Retired San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown has known Kamala Harris for decades, long before she was a household name. He was her mentor, and he admits they even dated back in the 90s. He believes there's no better candidate to replace Joe Biden.
A lot of pride, and that's not just for me, but for lots and lots of people. For an example, this will be, she gets elected to the presidency, this will be the first time a graduate of one of the historical black colleges or universities has made it president of the White House. You don't understand how important it is and how much pride it is.
Harris has never lost a race, from San Francisco District Attorney to California Attorney General to U.S. Senator to Vice President. Brown says Harris is more than qualified to become the next president.
Any time I go to the track, if there's a horse that's won every time he's been in the race, I'm betting that horse.
She's a prosecutor, a former prosecutor, hell of a prosecutor, who's running against a guy who's a felon 34 times.
Bay Area Attorney Joe Cachette also supports Harris. He's a longtime friend of Joe Biden, known Biden for roughly 50 years.
He's not a quitter. He's a guy that's standing up and saying, look, for the best of the country, I'll step aside if that's what the country wants. I think it was the classiest move I've seen in a very dedicated human being.
He understands why Biden dropped out. He talked to Biden twice in recent months.
Last time I talked to him, it was a slower talk, if you know what I mean. But that's what happens when all of us get old.
Outside of Harris' former school, Thousand Oaks Elementary in Berkeley, many Democrats say Harris would give their party a better shot at retaining the White House.
Rooting for Kamala in terms of the opportunity to have a first female president.
It will give some incentive to the general population, but also especially to the women of the country, to come out in favor of her over Trump.
We should let her have a chance because there's never been a female president.
Brown says one move Biden could make would increase Harris' chances.
I would hope that he would understand that her chances go up if he would, at this moment, say, not only am I no longer the candidate, I'm no longer the president, and she is.
Joe will not resign. He will finish his presidency in a very dignified and honorable way.
Still a lot of disagreements about strategies or even who should replace Joe Biden within the party. And some within the party even question, can a female candidate win over those swing states? Back to you guys.
Alrighty, thanks, Todd. This just in, by the way, Governor Gavin Newsom officially endorsed Vice President Harris, saying she is, quote, tough, fearless, tenacious. And he also thanked Biden, calling him a history-making president who will be remembered as both impactful and selfless. Newsom, as you know, is widely seen as a presidential contender himself, although he has claimed endlessly that he has no intention of running. The news has been sending shockwaves through the Bay Area as well. We checked in with a few customers at the Walnut Creek Farmers Market to see how they're taking the news. What we heard was a lot of support for Vice President Harris and a lot of sympathy for the president.
I'm excited for Kamala. I'm sad for Biden. I think he, did a great job. He, gave 5 decades of his life.
I think his track record is very good in that he could have probably done it, made a good president. But the cards were not in his favor.
I will be happy for him if he decided just to have a nice and restful life.